What's the one brand, the one single only brand that is the very definition of a blue water boat? And it's from Sweden, like Volvo. Who's won awards for Best Liveaboard, Best European Boat of the Year, American Boat of the Year, Cruising World Boat of the Year, Best Mid-Size Cruiser, and whose owner just won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Boat Builder Awards in 2020? Today, we're talking about the king of the somewhat affordable cruising boat. Everything you need to know and Lady K Sailing are brought to you by patrons, people who give a couple of dollars an episode to help this channel keep improving. Thank you. Hallberg-Rassy is named after two different boat builders, Harry Hallberg and Christopher Rassy. First, let's talk about Harry Hallberg. Harry was born in 1914 and started building boats when he was just 14 years old. Folk boats at the time, which are very pretty boats, and he was doing it out of Sweden. In the early 1940s, he started his own boat building business in Sweden. Harry had a new way of doing things in the boat building game. You see, everybody at the time was building one-off boats. They would get an order and they would custom build something specifically for that order. But Harry had a different idea on a way to do things. More like Henry Ford than anything else. Harry figured out a better way. And basically, the entire industry uses that way now, which is pretty cool. You see, what Harry did was he built boats in a series. So there was more than one of each model, which if you're building the same boat over and over and over again in series like this, it gives you time to improve the boat that you're making because you're building the same one over and over again. It also gives you time to improve the production process. So not only do the boats get better and better and better the higher the hull number gets, but you also build more of them because there's more efficiency designed into it over time. And that makes boats cheaper, which makes more people buy boats. So it's like win-win-win. And really, it's a big win for everyone involved, from Harry, who's building the boats, to the people building the boats who get more work, and the people buying the boats who get better boats for less money. You really can't go wrong. Harry Hallberg was having a lot of luck with his building boats in series. They were selling quite well. So he needed a bigger facility. So he sold the small facility that he was using from the time he started and bought some big boatyard to actually go big and go global and do all that kind of stuff. And this is where we enter Christoph Rassy. And you sort of see the connection, Hallberg, Rassy, and they'll come together at some point. So Christoph was originally from Bavaria. He moved to Sweden, and he was building boats in the one-off sort of a way, but he was doing quite well too, so he needed a bigger boatyard. He bought Harry Hallberg's old boatyard when Harry Hallberg moved up, because his business was doing quite well as well. The first boat Christoph decided to build in series, because series was working for Harry, was a boat like Harry was doing, and it's one of my favorite boats of all time. It's the Rasmus 35. This is a center cockpit, full keel boat, and it does have a cool story all on its own. The first two they made of 900 and something boats were made out of entire mahogany, and they were beautiful. Starting with model number 3, however, they switched to making them out of fiberglass, and they mass-produced them like crazy. The Rasmus 35 was way ahead of its time, with a solid engine, more horsepower than the actual hull and the weight of the boat needed, a hard windshield or spray hood or dodger, you'll call it something different based on where you live, a center cockpit, and the ability to truly go anywhere in the world with comfort and safety. It was just an amazing design and an amazing boat, and there's a good reason they made almost 1,000 of them. Looking at that Rasmus 35, now that I've been cruising and I guess I'm a little bit less impressed than I used to be. It's sort of a case of don't meet your heroes. It weighed in at just over 12,000 pounds, which is about 2,000 pounds shy of my Hughes 35, which I found too light. It also looks a little bit cramped. Like any center cockpit from those days, I get the functionality of a center cockpit in a 35-foot boat, but the pictures and the tours and the things I've watched and the research I've done just makes it feel really small. So moving on, Harry Hallberg retired in 1972 when there were still two separate companies, Hallberg and Rassy. So Harry retires and Christoph Rassy needs a bigger facility at that point. So he actually bought Harry Hallberg's company, the whole deal, and he merged them together to create what we know today, Hallberg-Rassy. And you may wonder why Christoph decided to keep Hallberg's name and particularly use it in front when his brand was doing fine. And he merged the brands, and the reason he actually kept the Hallberg name was Hallberg was a bigger brand at the time. They were selling more boats. So it was a good business decision for Christoph Rassy to put Hallberg in front of Rassy, and now we have Hallberg-Rassy. We talk about blue water boats, and that's something that's thrown around the internet pretty loosely. We also hear a comparison between blue water boats and production boats, another term that is used fairly loosely. Neither one of these things has a legal definition or a manufacturer's definition or any sort of rigidity as far as definition goes, but it is widely agreed that a blue water boat is purpose-built to make long ocean passages far from the coast, crossing the Atlantic, for example. Something with the weight to withstand the worst the ocean has to offer. A reduced sail plan, shorter mast, less boom, smaller sails, which makes it slower but much easier to handle, especially with a smaller crew. Accommodations for as many crew members as you need to cross an ocean, stowage and tankage to be far away from civilization for at least a month. And that seems to be the loose definition of blue water boat. Tankage is a huge deal too. You figure each person on board needs a gallon of fresh water for washing and drinking and that kind of stuff. 3 people on board means the 30-gallon tank in a coastal cruiser or quote-unquote production boat may be able to stretch for as much as 10 days with that many people on board. And 10 days really isn't that much. It's not enough to cross an ocean. The equivalent blue water boat, on the other hand, will carry at least 100 gallons of fresh water. The same goes for fuel and black water. The point of a blue water boat isn't to be fast, and that's important to know if you're looking at one. A production boat, on the other hand, tends to be lighter, with a much bigger sail plan, making it fast in light wind, but harder to handle and less comfortable in high seas. These boats are meant for coastal cruising or island hopping. Just about any production boat can safely go from the Great Lakes all the way to Grenada with little in the way of danger as long as the captain is careful. So what makes a Hallberg-Rassy a quote-unquote blue water boat? Well, for starters, they were designed to be just that. That was the goal from the go. And any one of them that you look at makes it really obvious with their sort of typical characteristic traits that they have. For starters, let's talk about a hard dodger. Most of us have a dodger on our boat. It's sort of the spray hood thing that we were talking about. And I can certainly tell you that I would not go traveling on a sailboat without some sort of a dodger. It gives you somewhere to hide from the weather and the spray and the cold wind, and it also doubles as sort of an area that you can put lines and equipment and different things like that to keep them out of the weather. Hallberg-Rassy pioneered the hard dodger, a fiberglass structure with real windows, none of this umbrella that wears out and plastic windows that fog up every few years and they have to be replaced, so you need a seamstress. The only downside I can really see to a hard dodger is you can't take it down, but at the same time I've never met anyone who takes their soft dodger down, so the hard dodger really makes sense. You can put handholds on the top of it. It just I don't know, every sailboat should kind of have one. Another key trait of a lot of these boats from Hallberg-Rassy is the center cockpit. It kind of gives you protection and stability, and with the right canvas, a lot of space to stay out of the weather on passage. So when the stern cockpit folks are ducking for cover because there's a storm coming, the center cockpit boats tend to keep going mile after mile after mile, regardless of what the weather is doing. And that's important. There's a lot of days where you genuinely need to make a 60 or a 70 or an 80 mile day. And if you're exposed to the weather, it's just not possible. So being what we might call a blue water brand, many of these boats sport a full keel, and that makes them more stable and able to take on whatever the ocean has to offer. It might make them a little slower, and of course we mentioned that, that's important to understand. But a blue water boat isn't about speed. It's about the ability to set off into the Atlantic to cross over to Europe from America. And with a good weather window, you might have 10 days where you know what's going to happen. But on a good blue water boat, after that 10 days, it doesn't matter what happens because you have the right boat for the job. It can handle anything that ocean is going to throw at you, no matter how high the waves are, as long as you have a competent captain and competent crew. It's not about speed. It's about the ability to get there. And that's the point of a blue water boat, and that's the point of Hallberg-Rassy, to get there safely. In my research of Hallberg-Rassy, there's one word that keeps coming up, and it's not a word you expect to hear about sailboats or sailboat design. It's integrity. It blows my mind. The integrity of the design of the boat, the integrity of the build quality, the integrity of how they make everything exactly the way it should be on a cruising boat. And let me give you some examples. They make sure that every mechanical part that could ever, in the next 50 years, need to be serviced is completely accessible. It's serviceable. Everything that could break down and have to be removed entirely, no matter how big it is, can actually be removed. Like, how many boat builders measure the companionway and then measure the diesel with the transmission on it and make sure it fits? They do that. That's integrity. That's integrity of the build quality, integrity of the product that they're making to give to us to sail around the world with. Making sure that every little thing actually works if you're in the real world and you don't have a full service yacht shop to pull your engine and transmission through the companionway. You don't have to cut anything. You don't have to do anything crazy. They've thought of this. One of the things I'm talking about is the steering mechanism in the new Hallberg-Rassy 40C. This thing, the whole steering mechanism is not push rod, pull rod, it's twist rod. So normally sailboats use a rod system, like good ones use a rod system to turn the quadrant. And that rod system is push and pull. But on the new one, it's twist, which makes it more precise at the wheel. You have better feel, you have better weather helm feel. Like, that's really cool. But also, the entire system is under the aft cabin bed. So if you lift up the bed, it's all there. And it's perfect. You can service everything, you can grease everything you need to grease. It's wonderful. And trust me, if you've ever been upside down in a locker trying to service your steering cables, integrity is something, integrity of the ability to maintain the boat is something that you will value greatly. And the integrity doesn't stop there. The glass layup is top notch. The old boats, the new boats, it's all top notch. The interior joinery and craftsmanship, it's with the best of them. The sail plans are so carefully selected to make sure you have enough power, but enough controllability to really use this boat anywhere you want to go. Everything about the brand suggests it was designed by a team of people taking a very scientific approach with one goal in mind: make cruising around the world as safe and as easy as possible. And I like that. When you start researching the older boats and talking to surveyors and things about old Hallberg-Rasseys, you get the same story sort of every time. There's no delamination, there's no deck joint issues, no blisters, no issues when it comes to the original build quality of these boats. So what is the downside then of Hallberg-Rassy? Well, there are some horror stories about the newer boats. They may have become a little more production and a little less rock solid go anywhere than they used to be. Maybe. These are just people ranting on the internet, I don't know. And finally, the one biggest thing I can say is that, and I really can't stress this enough, the brand has support. There is a very robust Hallberg-Rassy Owners Association. So no matter what the problem is you run into on a Hallberg-Rassy boat, someone has already solved it. And they'd be glad to talk to you about it. And having an owners group at your disposal is worth, oh man, at least $5,000 on the asking price of the boat. If it's, something that doesn't have the ownership, add $5,000 for Hallberg-Rassy, because they will stand behind you. They will help you. And the information is out there. And trust me, I've become the unwitting leading knowledge in the world on Hughes boats because nobody knows anything about them. And I'm not saying I'm the expert. I still know nothing about them. But Hallberg-Rassy has a wealth of knowledge in their owners association. You'll have the support, you'll have the friends, you'll have the camaraderie. If you can afford one of these things and you find one in good shape, in your area, in your price range, that meets your needs, I can't think of another brand that would even compare.